My name is Eric Pfund. The first time I heard so-called prophet Stair was around late 1991 or early 1992. I listened to his radio broadcasts on and off for several years. When my wife became pregnant with our son, it became a daily part of our life. We got rid of our TV and mostly listened to Stair on shortwave. Around 1998, we met some people in Michigan who regarded Stair as a prophet. My family and I, along with two brothers from Detroit, attended a gathering Stair held in South Carolina. I met other people from Michigan and had my first face-to-face encounter with Stair. I gave him an offering, and he told me that the Lord would lead me out of Michigan and into a community. He also mentioned that the Lord didn't like Michigan. I was surprised at how many people were trying to get to his communities. It seemed that this was when Stair began to place a strong emphasis on community living. Upon returning to Michigan, we started attending Sabbath services at the house of one of the people we met at the gathering. It was a long drive to the other side of the state, but we went every week for several months. I was later able to transfer my job close to where he lived. He was considering starting a community there, as he owned over 600 acres. We began making plans to move there. However, Stair began telling me that he would be in charge and wanted my savings and paychecks when we moved. I had learned enough about him not to trust him. From my experience, people who run these communities are proud, arrogant, and have a deep lust for power. We did not move, and although some people lived there for a while, the community never materialized. During this time, I delivered a piece of equipment for Stair to the Stairway community in Tennessee, and my family and I stayed there for a week. A couple of months later, Pastor Dowell invited me back for another visit. When we returned, Pastor Dowell seemed nice and honest, and before we left, he told me the Lord had put it in his heart that I belonged there. Back in Michigan, I had many doubts about moving. My dad had listened to Stair years ago and warned me, saying that Stair was a liar and had made predictions that didn't come true. But I believed Stair was the last day prophet, and I couldn't see the truth. A brother I knew, Jim DeVry, had moved to the community in Kentucky, and I was friends with him. His wife wouldn't join him and divorced him. She tried to warn me. They had visited Walterboro several times, and although there were things that concerned me about the community, I thought Christians should overlook differences. But with Pastor Dowell, I soon realized he thought he was always right. He was the man of God there. My problems began almost immediately. During meals or Sabbath services, he would single me out, trying to break me and make me a yes man like the others. Even though they disagreed with him, they would always agree face to face to avoid being screamed at and embarrassed. Well, I went home and read the rest of the chapter, and he forgot some important parts. On page 330 it reads, "These false prophets come perverting the word, giving it a meaning that fits their own devilish ends." Have you ever noticed how people who lead others astray bind them with fear? They say that if you don't do what they say or if you leave, destruction will follow. It goes on to say, notice how these people, like Judas, are out for money. They get you to sell all you have and give it to them in their schemes. People go to them, support them, and believe them, not knowing it's the way of death. It's clear why Stair didn't read this part. I had doubts but wasn't yet 100% sure, and I was still somewhat afraid to leave. Pastor Dowell often preached that if you left a community, you'd go to hell. There was no misunderstanding. He spoke about it often, and it was very clear. The final reason I decided to leave was when Brother Stair said he would go off the air if God didn't show his people they were saved by the year 2000. He spoke of this often before the year 2000. Anyone who listened regularly knows he made a great issue out of this for quite some time, saying he would go off the air. When 2000 arrived, and nothing happened, he said he wasn't going off the air. This is when I realized Stair was a liar. I went to Pastor Dowell and told him what I thought. Dowell came up with excuses, like 2000 had just begun, and we still had a year. But Stair had said by 2000. I remember him saying just days before that he only had a few days left to see if he was right. Dowell was mad that I was speaking against the prophet. I only pointed out things that didn't happen. Now, I was under immense pressure from Dowell and some of the other brothers. Every meal, every service, was aimed at convincing me I'd be like Esau if I left. Dowell also told me that I was sent there because I couldn't get to heaven without him, that I needed him to straighten me out. Can you believe that? He said I couldn't get to heaven without him. That statement was blasphemous. It's terrifying to be told this by someone you once thought was a man of God. I also knew that Stair would proclaim my damnation if I left. I found comfort in Deut 18:21-22, which says, if a prophet speaks in the name of the Lord and that thing doesn't come to pass, that's the thing which the Lord has not spoken. The prophet has spoken it presumptuously. Do not be afraid of him. I kept coming across this verse, and it helped ease my fear. Around this time, several other shortwave hosts started pointing out things Stair had said that didn't happen. William Cooper was one of them, highlighting false things Stair had predicted over the years. Stair always had excuses or used the Bible to explain or change his predictions, like the nuclear war he predicted during Reagan's presidency. He specifically said it would happen before Reagan's term ended, then changed it to mean Reagan's life. I'm thankful there are people who seek the truth. The final straw was Dowell's tyranny and hypocrisy. Dowell often yelled about how others worked, even though he did little. He would come to where we were working, criticize us for not working fast enough, work for 5 minutes, brag about it, then leave. He'd wonder why we couldn't keep that pace all day. He was rarely at the community, and when he was, he spent time in his car, with fast food wrappers and drinks, things most of us never got. Only certain brothers received money regularly. Most of the men had to deliver wood after prayer time, but Dowell never did. We put the wood inside his house, and when I went in, he was playing video games or lying around, while we worked hard all day. He had it easy, spending time with his family and doing little work. On January 12, 2000, I had enough. I was no longer going to be a slave to a man who used the Bible to put fear into people to establish his and Stair's utopian dream. I went to Dowell's house and told him I was leaving. Immediately, he started yelling, telling me I was going to hell. He said I would be eternally tormented by his voice and everything he'd said. It was far from the loving, caring pastor he was supposed to be. When I left, I felt a great weight lifted from me. My feet felt light again, something I hadn't felt in a long time. Many others felt the same way. They would often walk around moping, with heavy feet. Dowell even commented on the way people walked. That feeling was now gone. I was then called back to the dining hall, where Brother Stair was on the phone. The first words out of his mouth were, "You're going to hell, Eric, you're going to hell, boy." He called me a snot-nose and said I didn't know anything. He did say I'd get my money back from Dowell, something Dowell had promised before, during, and after I left. Dowell had told me I'd get it back, even though I hadn't stayed 3 months. But when I left, I only received $700 to $800. I went there with over $8,600. By the time I rented a moving truck and returned to Michigan, I had about $200 left. My possessions were loaded onto a trailer and taken to the gate of the property, where my wife and I had to load it ourselves. Pastor Dowell had more hateful things to say. He told my wife I was the devil and to remember that she was sleeping with the devil. Can you believe this? He wasn't content with me leaving. He had to try to instill fear and doubt in my wife and all the brothers standing there. His treatment of me made it harder for others to leave because they feared going through the same thing. I'm thankful that I kept in contact with my parents, or I would have had nowhere to go. They were very understanding and helped me greatly. Leading was emotionally and mentally difficult, and at times I wondered if they were right. But I knew Dowell was wrong. He was a power-hungry fool. Most of you now realize Stair was no prophet through his recent actions. Many of your eyes are now open to the things you suspected or didn't understand before. I pray that you all get your lives on track. It's a long process, and some things will never be the same. Some of you have suffered much greater losses, money, time, and emotional damage. Especially the families of those poor women. Please, don't be fooled again. I recently called Pastor Dowell, hoping he had seen the error of his ways. He still owes me over $3,800 and told me he would send $500, but that was 6 months ago, and nothing has arrived. He says it's an offering and doesn't need to be returned, claiming I didn't fulfill my obligations. What obligations? To be his slave? Before I left, he promised me I'd get my money back if I left. What about the land we were supposed to own together? Another lie. Dowell hasn't changed. When I spoke to him on January 5, 2001, he still spoke the same way. Anyone thinking of going to that community should beware. He is a deceiver, a power-hungry liar. I know this all too well. As for Brother Stair, I'm glad I heard Mike Rowland speak out about him.